Ponce de Leon by John Emmons. The history and the beginning of Ponce as an explorer. Ponce de Leon discovered Florida and was a famous explorer for his time, but nobody really talks about him anymore. One fact I never knew about until I started researching him was that he was with Columbus when he went on his voyage in 1493. Then in 1508, rumors of gold enticed Ponce to Puerto Rico. After pacifying the island, Ponce was made governor of Puerto Rico, but was pretty much removed immediately from this position. Ponce sought wealth and fame and perpetual youth. After traveling with Columbus, Ponce was set on making his name known. I chose Ponce de Leon because I am interested in old world explorers, and I believe Ponce needs more exposure in the modern world. Set out by the king. Ponce was set out by the Spanish king to find the island of Bimini. This is important because those who don't know a lot about Ponce will see that he was not just a one-hit wonder, so to speak. La Florida states, in 1512, King Ferdinand rewarded Ponce with a asiento, a charter, to discover and conquer the island of Bimini. The contract stipulated, firstly, that with the ships you wish to take at your own cost and expense, you may go to discover, and you shall discover the island aforesaid. That when you find the island, you shall be obligated to settle at your cost in the sites and places you can best do it. Ponce's journeys and why he should still be relevant today. Ponce was always on the move. He was always seeking new voyages to go on. Once Ponce heard about a fountain of youth, he wanted to be the first one to find it. Ponce left Puerto Rico on March 3, 1512. He landed near the St. Johns River a month later. He named this new land La Florida. At that time it was almost Easter, which is the season Ponce arrived in Florida was in. Here's a quote from the Spanish borderlands about Ponce's arrival in Florida. With a fleet of 3 vessels on March 3, 1512, Ponce sailed from Puerto Rico and anchored a month later on the coast of the northern mainland, near the mouth of the St. Johns River. Ponce's journeys and relevance continued. Ponce made Florida well known. Eventually, someone would have made Florida well known. He charted the rivers and land in Florida no one else did until he did. Without Ponce, we wouldn't have the charts and maps we do of Florida today. Ponce also was in the search for the Fountain of Youth, which other explorers looked for, but Ponce was an avid searcher for anything he could find. He was not successful with the fountain, but he did have one big discovery. Ponce discovered the Bahama Channel, which would later be a route for Spanish treasure ships coming back from Spain from the West Indies. Today, you don't hear a lot about Spanish explorers. More than likely, not a lot of people have heard about Ponce de Leon. Here is a drawing of the Fountain of Youth from DeviantArt.com to the right. Why Ponce's findings are relevant. Without Ponce, we would not have the knowledge of Florida we have so early in history. Also, Gatorade comes from Florida. Gatorade would probably have been created somewhere else if not in Florida. But it makes you think if Ponce did not discover Florida and left his mark on it. All joking aside, Ponce did leave a mark on Florida itself. He gave Florida its name. Here's a quote from statesymbolsusa.org about the origin of the name Florida. Florida was named by the explorer Ponce de Leon in 1513. The name Florida comes from the Spanish word florido, which means full of flowers or flowery. The state of Florida. I have never been to Florida myself, and I hope to go someday. It would be interesting to see how the state would have its history impacted if Ponce did not leave his mark on it. Ponce's charting. Ponce made Florida well known. Eventually, someone would have made Florida well known. He charted the rivers and land in Florida no one else did until he did. Without Ponce, we wouldn't have the charts and maps of Florida we do today. This quote from La Florida says, the expedition sailed from San German, Puerto Rico on March 3, 1513, in 3 ships well provided with food, men, and mariners. The manifest of the Santa Madre Consolacion, Santiago, and San Cristobal included one woman, Juana Riaz, an Italian named Juan or Giovanni Bono, a cowboy identified as George, Negro, and a free West African black identified as Juan Garrido, a black man listed as Ferdinando, Fernaciano, an Indian slave, and 2 Taíno seafarers. Here's a map of the travels from Ponce de Leon from Britannica.com to the right. Ponce's effects while on voyages. Here's another quote from La Florida about Ponce's impact on the places he traveled to. Burnishing his reputation as a fierce fighter on the island of Hispaniola, he helped conquer and later govern the province of Higüey, northeastern Haiti. In 1506, leading an expedition to the island of Boronquin, Puerto Rico, he ruthlessly put down Taíno uprisings, earning the governorship for his deeds. He later plundered the Lucunas, Bahamas. If Ponce saw a problem, he took care of it. He didn't wait. He took care of it right then and there. With exploring new lands, there was the very high danger of bringing disease into these new lands. Most of the time, this was the case. Disease effects of Ponce's exploration. Any time an explorer or explorers would arrive in a new land, there was always death to the native people because of the sickness the explorers brought. Here's a quote from La Florida about the effects of disease. Florida's Indians succumbed to old world diseases. Natives might have resisted mounted knights and harbuses, but they lacked the defense against diseases that ravaged Europe, Africa, and Asia for thousands of years. Smallpox, yellow fever, influenza, measles, and other vectors of death decimated every pre-contact tribe and confederation in La Florida, breaching ancient boundaries and borders, reaching villages deep within the American Southeast and beyond. Conclusion. In conclusion, Ponce was an adventurous man with the goals of being the best explorer. He had his successes and failures, but at the end of the day, Ponce was a great explorer. He made Florida known, and I hope this project helps us remember him, lest we forget our history. This picture on the right is from NationalGeographic.org with my face on Ponce. Enjoy.